Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what is my creation myth?
This is a question that I like to ask everyone. I think it's important for everyone to ask it to themselves and also to those around them. And this also is interesting because to most people it's not a myth. Your creation story is just that. It's a story of your creation, a story of how you got to where you are and where you came from. And intrinsic to each of our existence is our creation myth.
And interestingly enough, it's not a myth to you. It's a creation story. It's the story of how you got here and how everything else came to be here as well. This story, this creation story that we believe, that we hold onto, is intrinsic to our existence. It's intrinsically bound to our personal story, the one we believe, the one we share, and the one we happily tell everyone around us all about. And if you look and listen, everything we say is a way of us sharing our personal myth, our personal beliefs, and our creation story. But how often do we stop to ask ourselves what our personal creation myth is? How do you really believe you came to be in this magical place? And when we review the words creation myth, we ask ourselves, why is it a myth? And it's not to you, but other people around the world have different creation myths, different creation stories. To someone else, your story of how you came to be is only a myth. It's not provable, it's not measurable, and it's not necessarily even truth unless you regard it as such. And here is an interesting glimpse into the power of our story, the power of the story we share so readily about ourselves and about the universe in which we live. Everyone has, at some point in time, stopped re-evaluating their creation story. We moved on past it, whether it was from an atheist, a scientific, or a religious upbringing. At some moment we stopped questioning our story of how we got here. But perhaps there is a beauty or a power in asking ourselves this question, and not only of ourselves, but of others around us, if they're aware of the story they so wholeheartedly believe, the one that supports their every action in their day-to-day life. How often do we take a moment to step back and look at our creation story, and to look at the truths and fallacies that we make assumptions about to this very moment? And I'm not here to tell you what your creation myth should be. I'm not here to even speculate that one is greater than another, but only that we recognize that every story we believe is at some point a myth, not the truth. And our respect for another person's creation myth is a great way to openly allow and perceive diversity take place in a belief system. For we don't have yet one creation story. The world has not agreed on a conclusion as to how we came to be and where we're going.
In fact, a short story from Daniel Quinn's book Story of B helps me illuminate the point that we're trying to make when we hold on to a creation myth, a creation story. So there's a planet just like ours, and it's thousands of years past its birth. It's developing single-cell organisms, multi-cell organisms, and all of a sudden we've arrived at the jellyfish. The jellyfish is the latest achievement on the scene of evolution, the newest model on this planet. And as every planet, of course, is developing and evolving, there is a anthropologist waiting to take notes and journal all his discoveries. And as our anthropologist, the narrator of the short story, is traversing about on a beach, he sees a jellyfish squirming about in the shallows of the ocean. So he walks out there to document his findings. and he sees the jellyfish, and he says, "Hello, hello," says the jellyfish. And then the anthropologist asks, "What are you doing here?" And the jellyfish responds, curtly, "What are you doing here?" And the anthropologist explains, "Well, I'm an anthropologist, and I'm studying, life and existence and evolution. So I'm curious about how you got to be here right now." And the jellyfish laughed and said, "Well, everyone knows how I got to be here. It's the story of how we all got to be here." And the anthropologist says, "Yes, of course. Well, can you please share it with me, please? It'd be so nice." So the jellyfish starts, and he says, "Well, millions of years ago, there was nothing. Big, empty space. And then a monumentous event happened, explosion of life and galaxies and stardust, and fast forward 1 billion years, and this body, this celestial planet, was created and formed and cooled. And as the gelatinous goop cooled and turned into water, the water cooling led to single-cell organisms, which led to multi-cell organisms, which led to finally, the conclusion of all evolution, me, the jellyfish." The jellyfish said, and then he concluded his story. That was it. And this is the end of the story, and it's kind of the punchline where the jellyfish says evolution has led up to the obvious conclusion of mastery of evolution, which is me, the jellyfish. And this is funny because it's only the latest achievement of evolution. It's not evolution's final endgame. It's not evolution's final refinement. It's just the most current model. And from the perspective of the jellyfish, one can see the hilarity, the humor of his creation myth. The jellyfish's creation myth is based around his egocentric perception of the world in which he lives in. And this is also why it's fun to address your creation myth. Your creation myth, as real as it may sound right now, is equally as ludicrous as the jellyfish's creation myth. Now, this may take a minute for you to swallow. This is a lot to take in. But the story that you tell yourself about how you got here as a person, as a species, as a conscious entity is as irrelevant as the one the jellyfish told, because most likely it involves a short narrative of before you, and then the arrival of you, and the conclusion of everything with you. And this is obviously not the conclusion of everything. You, as beautiful and amazing as you are not the conclusion or the final refinement of conscious divinity. What does this mean? What does this mean if we all have different creation myths or different stories about how we were created to get here, and we're all still here together? Whose is right? And this is where it's interesting to really evaluate the story. And what is a story other than a pairing of rules and causes effect to teach us these rules? If our story is flawed from the foundation, then the logical fallacies will never be apparent. This is the danger of not evaluating the myth of your creation, because indeed it is only a myth, because you don't know for sure where you came from or how you got here. This is the power of the simple phrase, creation myth. Because no matter who you are or how sure you are of your story, it is still only a story.
Alright guys, thanks for watching another video by me, Kung Fu Nerd. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video with your friends, share it to your Facebook, and I also have a Patreon link in the description if you want to show any financial support. Everything's appreciated. Love you guys. Have a great day.